Hey collectors, welcome to Star Wars Collected. I'm Jonathan. If you're new here, I hope you consider sticking around and subscribing. But if you've been here before, I want you to hit that like button like you were igniting the green for the first time. Because guys, what I have today for you is the Gentle Giant Luke Skywalker statue from Return of the Jedi. We're gonna open it up, put it together, take a look at it, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. As you all know, Return of the Jedi came out in 1983, which is the same year that my parents got married, and we are in the 40th anniversary of that. Just last week, I went to the Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary showing at my local cinema. I think it made a little over $5 million that weekend, so 40-year-old movie still raking in the millions. And Return of the Jedi was my favorite Star Wars film as a kid growing up. It has since moved to Empire as I've become more sophisticated, but I do love the black Luke Skywalker. I think that was probably my favorite little Hasbro action figure back in the day. If I was going to be playing with a Luke, it was probably that one most of the time. Now this is a Gentle Giant piece. I do like Gentle Giant quite a bit. They are not quite at the same quality, I would say, as something like a Sideshow, but they are also not asking you to pay anywhere near the same as Sideshow does. So you kind of have to look at the sort of value aspect of it. So this is number 643 of 2000, and this is the Milestone line from Gentle Giant. Gentle Giant has quite a few different lines. What I like about this line is that this is 1/6 scale. I like my pieces to be of a larger scale. I've yet to buy something like an Iron Studios piece because those tend to be like 1/10 scale. I've kind of gotten out of buying the ArtFX Plus stuff because those are kind of tiny. I like this scale right here. So while Gentle Giant might not always have the absolute best face sculpts or might not always have the absolute most detail in what they're making, they offer you a pretty cool statue at a pretty good price. Now, my experience with Gentle Giant is, however, that it's kind of best to buy them on the secondary market because they don't tend to hold their value like a Sideshow piece or a Hot Toys piece does. So I rarely buy anything new, or at least from Gentle Giant themselves. And honestly, the few times that I have done it, I've gotten kind of burned, where I could have gotten that statue much cheaper if I had just waited a little bit of time. And that is the case with this one as well. So this was not high on my radar. I saw it, I liked it. I don't have a Return of the Jedi Luke in my collection of statues and everything. I have A New Hope, I have a couple from The Empire Strikes Back, but I do not have a Return of the Jedi one. And these milestone statues usually go for about $250 from Gentle Giant or an authorized reseller. But guys, I got this 64% off. And it is brand new in the package. I am the first person to be bringing it out. There we go. So for 64% off, I could not turn it down. I just had to take a chance at getting it. This was an eBay find, and I'm glad that I did, at least so far I am. So let's take a look here. What do we have inside? We've got, of course, a bunch of padding here, and it's a relatively simple type setting. So we have his lightsaber here. Green lightsaber, of course. This was my favorite lightsaber as a kid growing up. I had a toy version of this that, I'm sure got beat to hell, but was my favorite one to play with. We have a stand here. Now the base for this statue is modeled after the Emperor's throne room. Like I said, I just saw Return of the Jedi less than a week before recording this. So it was really cool to see that and kind of know that this was on its way. So looking at the base real quick, there's not a lot to it. I personally don't love super detailed bases or super ornate bases. I'm kind of like a stickler for sort of like museum-ish and starkness, things like that. But this is sort of has a little bit of texture on it here and there. There's like the slightest little area right here that I'm seeing that looks a little sloppy, but honestly, I think it's just that the texture is applied to this, and maybe in that place it just doesn't look quite as good. Across the bottom here, Gentle Giant Star Wars Luke Skywalker, 1/6 scale statue, 643 out of 2000, and a bunch of other stuff here. This was released in 2021, or at least licensed in 2021. And Gentle Giant is owned by Diamond Select Toys now. They weren't always done that way. So if you're looking for something like this, you're gonna wanna search for both Gentle Giant and Diamond Select Toys. But not bad overall. And like I said, this is a 1/6 scale piece. Gentle Giant makes a lot of different scales. So if you're trying to build a collection and you're trying to stay all within the same scale, make sure that the pieces you're buying are 1/6 scale or 1/7 scale or whatever it is that you like, because they do make multiple scales. They also are famous for making busts. They make a lot of busts, and I don't particularly like those. That's not something I've ever been interested in collecting, and I'm always disappointed when they release the shots on social media and it's of the top half, and I'm like, oh great, they make a new statue, and it ends up being a bust. I don't know, I like legs, I guess. I'm a legs guy. All right, so here we have the body of Luke Skywalker. Now, I'm so used to sideshow pieces this day that it's kind of odd to have it all ready as one piece. You know, when you buy a premium format thing from Sideshow, it tends to have at least the head separate. A lot of times you're locking in arms and hands and things of that nature. This is basically all done and very simple for you. So if you don't feel super comfortable with assembling a figure, this might be a good line for you and a good piece for you. Let's take a look at him here overall. You know, it's a relatively simple outfit. It is a black jumpsuit. He does have a little bit of weathering on his belt buckle here, which is nice. He has a little hook for his lightsaber, which is cool. Of course, he has the gloved hand, little pouch here on the side. The boots look accurate, and there is like a little bit of patina or weathering here on the top of the boots where the leather would be a little worn. So that's actually pretty cool. And his belt going around his waist here does have a leather texture. And across the shoulders here, there's a little line going across, a little seam, which I'm sure how it's put together, but there's actually little teeny tiny dimples going all the way across to make it look like stitching. And that is also present here on the front. There are little tiny dimples to make it look like stitching. You see kind of the pull of the fabric, more accentuated here on the outside, and then a little bit muted as it goes underneath, which is actually very accurate for how fabric would fold. So the body is looking actually pretty incredible. Now, I think you maybe lose a little bit of detail when we get to the hands. They are fine. The paint application though is sort of a mixture of pinks and like maybe a little bit of yellow or a beige, and it looks great. The skin it's a great skin tone color match. It just doesn't look extremely purposeful. Sort of like they mix a little bit of this paint on there, a little bit of that paint on there, but maybe not so much. Like the knuckles are gonna be a little more white and this part's gonna be a little more pink. So overall, not bad there. And then you get to the face sculpt, and this is, I tend to think, where Gentle Giant does not quite hit it as hard as the other manufacturers do. He's a handsome looking boy. I don't know if he looks like the Luke Skywalker that I know and love, but it's not too far off. His hair looks pretty accurate to the style, but of course there's not going to be any mistaking who this guy is when you see him on a shelf. And I kind of like that his pose is not going to be completely straight on here. So let's get to that part here. Let me go ahead and put this down here, and we will bring out our handy dandy Lazy Susan here, so that way we can really get a look at the full piece. All right, so here we go. Stay on target, stay on target. Oh, it went in. Okay, great. Can be a little tricky sometimes. And then the lightsaber just has the back of the hilt is in his hand here. The paint is fairly clean. It is a silver paint though. There's no mistaking that it is, you know, something metal or something. And then it just sort of disappears in his hand. This is a very common way for statue makers to do this. And you just sort of slide it around, and there you go. It fits in very snugly. The lightsaber blade to me looks a little thick compared to at least other versions of statues that I've seen. So maybe a little thick, but I kind of like this pose. I think this pose is actually kind of cool. I'm pretty used to things either being like really dynamic where someone's legs up in the air or something like that, or they're on a rock or something, or very kind of like straight on. This is a kind of a nice natural pose. He looks strong and confident. In Return of the Jedi, Luke really kind of grows into himself, really becomes a Jedi, and I think this pose kind of has that. It is not necessarily threatening, but it is confident and strong. So I think that looks pretty good. So we'll just rotate him around here a little bit so you guys can see him fully. I think this looks pretty good. Like I said, it's not gonna be your Sideshow, your Hot Toys, but the retail price of $250 is not what I would have paid for this particular piece. There are other pieces that I think are really great. There's a Leia piece that I really like of her from A New Hope in the detention cell. There's also an Admiral Akbar piece that's coming out that I'm really excited about. You may have seen that in my Star Wars Celebration video. That one I'm very tempted about to go ahead and order, but I know my rule that Gentle Giant stuff does tend to drop in price, so I'm a little hesitant to do that. But for $250 retail, not terrible. but for what I paid for it, under $100, shipped to my house, I think this is great. And I love the scale of the size, and he's gonna look great next to some of my other Return of the Jedi stuff. All right, collectors, well, that's all my thoughts on the Gentle Giant Milestone Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker statue. This is 1/6 scale, which I think is a great scale. Why don't you guys hop down in the comments, let me know what you think of this piece. What do you think of Return of the Jedi? And guys, if you like content like this, make sure you subscribe because we have new videos here all the time covering things like Star Wars collectibles and the Star Wars fandom as a whole. And guys, I can't wait to bring you another video here really shortly. All right, see ya.